Welcome into Rover Sports, Evening Edition, post-game show, NFC Divisional Round. The San Francisco 49ers have just eliminated the Dallas Cowboys in an epic battle. 9-9 going into the middle of the third period. I'm here with Spencer G. Your thoughts?
Great game overall. Sensational game of football. Both teams really hitting hard. Defense was out there and an all-out war. I thought the Cowboys acquitted themselves very well defensively. I certainly had questions about the Cowboys' offense. And when Tony Pollard got injured in the second quarter and had to be carted off, that really hurt the Dallas Cowboys. But in the red zone, that's where Dallas struggled. San Francisco fumbled the opening kickoff of the second half, held them to 3, and then Dak Prescott threw an interception when Dallas was also going in there to score. So the Cowboys' defense is proving to be very formidable. Going forward, they actually have a lot of young talent, but with Dak Prescott at the helm with CeeDee Lamb, I think that on the outside, Schultz is a nice player, but I think that they need to get another wide receiver that's elite on the outside. And the Dallas Cowboys are a pretty dang good team. Their defense, Micah Parsons. This was not an embarrassing or shameful loss to the 49ers. The 49ers are really a terrific football team.
Just some thoughts about the game. So number one, it was a defensive battle. This is old school NFC football. Two storied franchises, Cowboys, 49ers. And you saw all the Hall of Famers there. You saw Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Roger Craig, everybody. And it looked like a beautiful stadium. It was a great day, a fast field. And looking at it, certain thoughts that I have. Number one, both quarterbacks had almost identical statistics, albeit with the 2 interceptions that differentiated Brock Purdy from Dak Prescott. I thought Brock Purdy at times looked like a rookie. A few times he almost let the clock run out with 7 seconds, and he looked like a deer in the headlights at that point. But he's a great rhythm thrower, and Dallas, played a good defense, but he was able to stay in rhythm. I noticed that Deebo Samuel had a very quiet game. He only had 4 receptions for 26 yards, a couple runs. McCaffrey didn't do anything in the first half, came alive in the second half, and scored the game-winning touchdown, a 2-yard run. But this game went back and forth. It literally went back to that's what's great about football. It went down to the last second when Zeke Elliott is snapping the ball on a hook and ladder play with no seconds left. And that's the way football should be. So we attended the Eagles game last night, and as many of you commented, the game was over by halftime. It was 28-0. And the game was only interesting if you're a really big Philadelphia Eagles fan. If you're a casual football fan, you just didn't have anything to watch in the second half. This was the exact polar opposite. You saw a great defense, great defensive schemes by both teams, and this could have gone either way, and it just turns out that Brett Maher got the monkey off his back. After hitting one low extra point that was blocked, he hit 2 extra points and a reasonable field goal. So you feel for the young man after going on the schneid for 5 missed extra points. But you look at it, you see Dak Prescott really struggled, in a good way. He fought. He could have been tackled for a safety. He could have just gone down. But the Dallas team, they never stopped fighting. And you look at the scheme of DeMeco Ryans, the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, and Fred Warner, who's the best linebacker in the NFL, with an opportunistic interception. And this game had so much hitting, and it was just a well-played defensive struggle, 9-9 in the middle of the third quarter. You had no idea who was going to prevail. And essentially, while it was a 7-point win, the game was a lot closer than that. Additional comments?
Yeah, for Prescott, he's dealt with some injuries. coming out of college, he didn't have the biggest arm. And he's getting up there in age. I say that. He's, basically the same age as me. But Dak going to be 30 years old, and it just looks like his body has been just a lot of wear and tear on Dak Prescott. And you look at Tony Pollard going down, and Zeke Elliott is even slowing down a little bit. The Cowboys have had to play Jason Peters. Trayvon Diggs is a pretty good corner, but the 49ers roster is better. You have Dre Greenlaw, Bosa inside with, several guys to get after the quarterback. Their safety that they found in the later rounds is really, really a good player. So their team is just airtight.
Bless you.
Their team is just airtight on both sides of the ball, and that's why they were able to win. And for the Cowboys, just going to Tampa and then, battling throughout the entire year with Dak, I just think Dak needs a great running game to be successful. I think he's got a couple of good years left in him. I know he's still a young guy. They just weren't the more talented team. They need pieces if they're going to beat San Francisco, if they're going to beat Philadelphia. I think that McCarthy's got them going in the right direction. Like, beating Tampa is a step. And they acquitted themselves in this game, like you said. They shut down Deebo Samuel. McCaffrey didn't really get going in the second half. They were able to get to Brock Purdy. Their defensive line was fierce. They were really hitting. Their defense and Dan Quinn today really showed up. Their offense went against a juggernaut. Their offense did what it could do. I mean, their offense was good when it was hitting those throws underneath. That was the one play that Dallas had, was when Dak was getting rid of it. They were able to hit some quick game stuff. They tried to run the football, but their offensive line needs a little bit of pieces. And they're close, but this road going to San Francisco, I believe that the Niners were the better football team. And especially when Dallas made those mistakes on the road, I just think the 49ers are a bit better. But it was a classic. And you look at this whole weekend, the defense has really shined. It wasn't just about a quarterback's league. It wasn't just about a passing league. I'm sure if you want now, do you want to talk about the rest of the games?
Well,
because we had games when we had Mahomes and Lawrence. Those two teams only accounted for like 30 points in the entire game. 27-20, Kansas City. And Chad Henne even led a touchdown drive. But the real story might be the Buffalo Bills hosting a game against Cincinnati. I think that that's the biggest story of the playoffs so far.
Yeah, I would say that too. And certainly hearts go out to some Buffalo Bills fans, the Kaminsky family. Just another disappointing loss. But when I look at the game, it seems like Joe Burrow just kind of thrived in the snow. It was a driving snow. And I think he was in the moment. Burrow was laser sharp. It seems like last week Burrow, had an off game, and I think a lot of people didn't give him a chance going up to Buffalo. But if you look at Burrow, the precision passing that he had, and the Cincinnati defense really got after Josh Allen and made it difficult for him. And the fact that the Bengals jumped to a 14-0 lead, they were able to hold the lead, and they were able to play downhill most of the game. And again, it snowed harder in the second half. I'm sure it didn't make it any easier for Josh Allen. Diggs got injured but came back. But he's an important part of the offense for the Bills. And there was a lot of emotion in the game with Damar Hamlin watching the game from the box with his mom and his little brother. And that was something great to see. That was certainly something worthy of the camera constantly showing him. And disappointing that the Bills could not win for Damar, but again, the Bengals just played an airtight game. There was a lot of third and longs, and I don't think Josh Allen had his best game. I don't think he was terrible, but he just didn't have his best game. Other comments about Bills Bengals?
I think that last year, was really Buffalo's moment where they had Brian Daboll there as an offensive coordinator. Everything seemed to be clicking. And if they would have staved off, I guess we can use that word, the Kansas City Chiefs, they would have had a game that would have been the same as today. It would have been Bengals going to the Buffalo Bills. People looked at Cincinnati last year just as getting on a great run, beating Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, throwing those interceptions, kind of surviving and thriving against Tennessee. And then they viewed Kansas City as Kansas City kind of choking the game away. And then in the Super Bowl, they didn't look that convincing in that Super Bowl either. It wasn't that well played between both teams. But it was a really nice second half comeback at Arrowhead from Joe Burrow. But today was maybe Joe Burrow's best game. He was completely in charge. They came out. They hit him with an uppercut right to the face immediately. Joe Burrow scoring that touchdown to Jamar Chase. Then they were able to hit Hayden Hurst, and Hayden Hurst had his best game as a pro. Hayden Hurst played for, I believe, Atlanta and also Baltimore. So Hayden Hurst has played a long time out of South Carolina. And for him personally, who's overcome hardships, it's really good for Hayden Hurst to have a moment like he did today. Alex Endrickson played really well in the slot for Cincinnati. Joe Mixon ran the ball at an incredible level. The Bengals are just a better team, and that's kind of what you want to see, is better teams win. You know, the reason why I love the game of football is because if this was a game of basketball, you have Josh Allen, who I actually believe is more talented than Joe Burrow, is the best player on the field. I believe Stephon Diggs is right up there with Jamar Chase. I really do. I believe that combination of Allen and Diggs is sensational. Cole Beasley's a big-time player. Gabe Davis can make plays. So they thought it would be a shootout. But Cincinnati's defensive coordinator, Lou Rigmu, he had so many intricate blitz plans. And to see a superpower like Josh Allen, who's hard to relate to, because humans are not built 6'5", they can't really run 4.5s, 40s, and throw the ball 80 yards. Josh Allen is an alien. He's a freak of nature. And for the Bengals today to come out and shut down Josh Allen on the biggest stage, Josh Allen has never really been tested to that degree by a defense. And that is a credit to the Cincinnati Bengals. They played a beautiful team game today. Joe Mixon running the ball. They were missing 3 offensive linemen, and they ran it for 180 yards because the Bills are a top-heavy team. They have Josh Allen. They have Diggs. They have stars, but they don't have substance. There's a reason that the Patriots almost beat them. There's a reason that their sloppiness almost allowed them to get tripped up by a third stringer last week. It's because they're a top-heavy team. They have a quarterback that's sensational, but then they don't have all the pieces. Now you look at Kansas City. They let Tyreek Hill go to try to become more complete. But it's so hard. It's so hard in the NFL to win a Super Bowl or get to a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers has only played in 1 Super Bowl. Brett Favre's only won 1 Super Bowl. There's Hall of Fame quarterbacks that are only going to win one that are maybe never going to win. And Josh Allen is that guy. He is great every regular season. He's sensational, but he's kind of like Peyton Manning. He's just waiting to get that one. When he gets that one, he'll get all the respect. But right now, he doesn't have that one. And the city of Buffalo, you kind of feel for a guy like Allen, don't you, Bruce? Because no matter what he does in the regular season, it's all going to come down to January, isn't it?
It sure is. And last year, stunning loss to the Chiefs with 13 seconds left. Stunning loss. And looking briefly, obviously this is Rover Sports, Slaughterhouse Sports. I'm SportsDoc with Spencer G. And we are doing Divisional Weekend wrap-up and updates. Looking ahead to the championship games, just a little teaser. I personally see them as great matchups. Again, I haven't seen the line, so I have to admit, I haven't seen it. But given the fact that the 49ers and Cowboys played so close, and is this the 11th or 12th straight win?
11th.
11th straight win for the 49ers. most of the odds makers have given the 49ers a chance, a lead over the Eagles. The Eagles will be playing at home next week. It will be definitely cold. It can't not be cold. In the 30s, with or without wind. An advantage for the Eagles to have a home crowd, a Lincoln Financial Field, crazy crowd like last night, which was just, even though the game wasn't that exciting, the crowd was amped. It was electric. There were about 200,000 people who didn't even come to the stadium, who were just partying outside, going to Xfinity Live. The place was buzzing and electric and ready to explode with a victory. I don't see that changing next week with the Eagles on the precipice of a Super Bowl, particularly in light of their 2017 Super Bowl victory. So I see this as a pick-em game. Now I look at Joe Burrow going to Kansas City, Arrowhead Stadium. The weather's almost identical, really, in Kansas City and Cincinnati. They're not far. And there'll be a lot of Bengals fans who'll make the trek to Arrowhead, a great stadium. But looking at Mahomes, a guy who will have still some mild residual, at least, from a high ankle strain. I think that's going to even things out. And I see that game as a pick-up as well. With the Bengals and Chiefs, two very evenly matched teams, I can't wait. The NFC and AFC championship games can't come fast enough for me. And I, as a football fan, certainly appreciated that the NFL was smart enough to keep the Cowboys and 49ers game to the end. They knew that would be the premier game, and it was, in fact. My wife, who's a casual football fan, watched every second of this 49ers Cowboys game. It was riveting. You couldn't take your eyes off it. It was a great football game, and it could have gone any which way. And again, the 49ers prevail at the end. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think that when you look at the teams that are left, you have 3 teams out of 4 that were also participants last year. And the Philadelphia Eagles were 2 rounds short, going 8-8 and then losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Eagles have emerged from the pack. But you look at the AFC as identical, and you look at the 49ers as having a road chance again to get to a Super Bowl. The Niners in the past 4 years have gone to 3 NFC championships. The Kansas City Chiefs have gone to 5. However, these two teams have only played one time, and that was when Mahomes won his 1 Super Bowl and the 49ers came up short in the fourth quarter. They couldn't close out the game. So it's a tremendous story. You have a lot of quarterbacks that you have Purdy versus Hurts. And then you have Mahomes and Burrow, so first rounders versus, again, quarterbacks that were taken a little bit later. You look at a second round pick, though, it's still a pretty high pick in the second round. It's not like Brock Purdy, but it'll be interesting if the Eagles play a close game. They've won a lot of games by high margins. The game at Arizona was maybe the most compelling game that they've played. The Cowboys game. The whole division of the NFC East benefited from playing the AFC South this year. They got to play Jacksonville when Jacksonville was really down. They got to play Tennessee, and Tennessee certainly had a crash course landing. And then the Texans and the Colts are 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. So they had to play those games was terrific for the NFC. And then the NFC East. Yep. And then the NFC East also played Detroit, which was inconsistent. The Green Bay Packers, I think that they actually went 1-3 against the NFC East. So this year, Aaron Rodgers crashed to the ground. So really, the NFC North, you had the Bears, which were the worst team, the Detroit Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers. So the NFC East benefited from really playing those teams. So the schedule really, really matters. It's almost like college football. Just like TCU played Michigan and got beat up, and then they played the Georgia Bulldogs. But I think that this is going to be a lot of fun. And the Eagles game is first. The Eagles playing at 3 o'clock for the championship game. They fared okay. They beat Atlanta at 3 o'clock. And then they won a night game against Minnesota. But in the NFC Championship, they also lost to Carolina at night. They lost to Tampa in the day. They lost to St. Louis in the day. And then trying to remember that's about it. That's Andy Reid. And then they lost to Arizona. That was the early game too. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Arizona's the last team from the NFC West that's played the Eagles maybe in the postseason. And then the Giants. I mean, the Giants absolutely got blistered in this game. And the AFC is really the tougher conference right now when you look at the quarterbacks coming through the league. And Joe Burrow, I mean, you talk about a guy changing a franchise, it's Joe Burrow. That first-round pick was everything, tanking for Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was a backup at Ohio State. Joe Burrow was a third stringer. Dwayne Haskins was the guy. Joe Burrow was never going to beat out Haskins at Ohio State. And it's amazing what he's done. And Zach Taylor, too. So it's a great contrast of coaches too. You have quiet coaches, you have very outgoing coaches that are in this field in the end here. So it's I thought that the NFL playoffs has been decent. The first round was actually a lot better. I expected Bills-Bengals to be more competitive, to be a classic. The Giants game was a flop, like you mentioned. This game was a great kind of defensive stalwart. And then Kansas City was just an okay game. So last year's divisional round was a lot better. But those are closing thoughts on what was a really fun weekend. And we're going to be talking a lot more about what's coming up.
So I want to thank everybody who's tuned into YouTube. Certainly on my side of things, Jacob Media Sports. There were no injuries in the Eagles game, so I did not have to say anything at the end. We could always say that Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts were still not 100%, but that wasn't worth taking up 8 minutes of airtime. Also, there's Rover Sports coming up this Tuesday night on the Bruce Grossinger Facebook network, www.dbam.com. It's Slaughterhouse Sports with Spencer Jig. Does a lot to highlight a lot of college football and pro football, and also focuses on the NFC East. So I want to thank everybody, all of our friends down the line, today kind of felt like a Monday because yesterday felt like a Sunday. It was a great weekend to watch football. Not all games were great, but it was fun. And we're teeing it up for next week. On behalf of Spencer G, I'm SportsDoc signing off. And as always, good night and good sports.